provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
Good evening. Making headlines first at 9. Wrath of nature. A tsunami triggered by a magnitude 7.5 earthquake hit Indonesia, leaving hundreds dead. However, no threat to Indian Ocean.
This is the normal situation of combined effect of the high tide and high period of swell waves.
Curbing the rupee's freefall. Ministry of Finance temporarily suspends vehicle permit issuance to MPs, with loan-to-value ratio for hybrid vehicles also revised. Good intentions. Minister of Ports and Shipping insists that it was Sri Lanka who wanted China's involvement in the Hambantota port.
It was not China who asked for the Hambantota port. It was Sri Lanka.
Chinese ambassador says there is no hidden agenda. Another breach. 50 million Facebook users left exposed by a security flaw. Troubles of the SLC. Cricketing legend Kumar SANGAKKARA delves into recent issues surrounding Angelo Matthews.
Let's nurture fresh colors seen by little eyes. Guided by the light of our love, this space is for your little one. Adding flavor to World Children's Day, Tiara.
Good evening and a warm welcome, bringing you news from across Sri Lanka and around the world on Other Derana 24/7. I'm Indivari Amwatha. We begin tonight's broadcast with the latest in the region. A tsunami triggered by a magnitude 7.5 earthquake left the Indonesian city of Palu yesterday, leaving more than 380 people dead and over 540 others injured. 10-foot-high waves swept through Palu, with thousands of homes collapsed, along with hospitals, hotels and shopping centres. Experts, however, confirm that the tsunami will not impact the Indian Ocean region. Given Sri Lanka's tragic history with tsunamis, Deputy Director of Meteorology Department Meryl Mendes told us that although sea waves have reached road levels in some coastal areas in the south of Sri Lanka, a threat ceases to exist.
Indonesia is prone to earthquakes due to being located in the Ring of Fire, an arc of volcanoes and fault lines in the Pacific Basin. A powerful earthquake hit the island of Lombok last month, followed by a series of strong quakes throughout the month, with over 500 people being killed. In the latest natural disaster to hit the country, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake hit around 3:32 p.m. Indonesian time in Donggala yesterday, about 80 kilometers from the city Palu in the island of Sulawesi. Waves up to 10 feet in height swept through Palu, with thousands of homes collapsed, along with hospitals, hotels and shopping centers. Videos circulating on social media show people screaming and fleeing in panic, and a mosque among the buildings damaged. Indonesia's disaster agency said at least 384 people are killed, but the number is expected to rise, with at least 540 left injured. Rescue missions are underway despite electricity and communications being cut off, making it difficult to assess the damage in Palu and nearby fishing community of Donggala. In Palu, hundreds of people had been preparing for a beach festival that was due to start last night. The city's main hospital was damaged in the quake, and TV footage showed dozens of injured people being treated outside in makeshift medical tents. A tsunami warning was issued but lifted within the hour. According to an official of Indonesia's meteorological agency, the wave struck while the warning was in place. This has left Indonesia's meteorological agency facing severe criticism. Palu and Donggala are home to more than 600,000 people. The main airport in Palu has been closed since the tsunami hit, and according to a minister, the runway had been damaged but is hoped that helicopters would still be able to land. In 2004, the tsunami triggered by an earthquake off the Indonesian island of Sumatra killed 226,000 people across the Indian Ocean, including more than 120,000 in Indonesia. In the meantime, in Sri Lanka, waves reached road level along the coastal belt from Akurala to Totagamua along the Gol-Colombo main road across the past 3 days. Meanwhile, locals made note of a rise in water levels along the Kalido coastal belt of Kalutara and the river Kalu outfall. Deputy Director of Department of Meteorology Meryl Mendes says that the sea waves reaching road levels cannot be considered as a tsunami threat, adding that accurate weather systems are in place in this regard.
These sea waves are entering of the low-lying areas and offshore. Actually, there is not a tsunami. Tsunami is generally generated due to the earthquake occurring in the ocean. This is the normal situation of combined effect of the high tide and high period of swell waves. We are expecting actually that tomorrow this condition will be getting normal tomorrow. We had a very good warning system for the tsunami. So we have a collaboration link with other international organizations. We already have a good tsunami warning system in Sri Lanka. We regularly practice that.
The government continued with its decision to take several temporary measures to ease the pressure on the depreciating Sri Lankan rupee. The Ministry of Finance announced today that among the several measures which come into effect from midnight tonight include the suspension of vehicle permit issuance to MPs and state sector employees, as well as revisions of the loan-to-value ratio for hybrid vehicles.
The Ministry of Finance issued a communique today saying that the issuance of vehicle permits to members of Parliament will be suspended for a period of 1 year. Furthermore, importation of vehicles for government ministries, departments, statutory boards, as well as state-owned enterprises will be suspended until further notice. The ministry went on to note that importation of vehicles using concessionary permits issued to entitled state sector employees will be suspended for 6 months, and no letters of credit will be permitted to be opened based on these permits during this period. Furthermore, the loan-to-value ratio for hybrid vehicles will be revised from 70-30 to 50-50 ratio. The communique further reads that importers of all vehicles other than buses, lorries and ambulances will have to keep a 200% cash margin at the time of opening LCs. It goes on to say the requirement of 100% cash margin has been imposed for the import of refrigerators, air conditioners, televisions, perfumes, telephones including mobile phones, washing machines, footwear and tyres. The Ministry of Finance emphasised that the government will continuously monitor the exchange rate fluctuations and will take appropriate action accordingly.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe insists that steps will be taken to remove obstacles prevalent in the export sector in a bid to give much-needed impetus to the Sri Lankan economy. Addressing a ceremony held in Puttlam today, the Premier said that discussions are underway on limiting non-essential goods being imported to Sri Lanka in the face of currency crisis.
A newly constructed administrative building in Vanathavilluwa police station at a cost of 61 million rupees was declared open by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe today. Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara and a group of politicians also participated in the event.
In 2008, America saw a collapse in their economy that resulted in low interest rates. The then government decided to take loans during that time and build roads from that money while giving high interest rates from local banks. The economy saw growth through these loans. I warned back then not to obtain money in this fashion because one day it will flow back to the US. I suggested finding foreign investments. Then they were adamant that the US economy would not grow and therefore we could have the money in our hand. India has temporarily banned non-essential goods being imported to the country. I spoke to the Minister of Finance with regards to taking measures to stop or reduce non-essential goods being imported to Sri Lanka. The Minister would mention his decision in the coming days. This global economic crisis will not end this year and it will drag on next year as well. We will have to face it. We now have to take measures to save our foreign exchange reserves. I told the ministers to remove the obstacles in the export sector.
The positive strides Sri Lanka has made in the sphere of democracy, reconciliation, rule of law, human rights and media freedom have drawn praise from the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Guterres may have expressed these sentiments when he met President Maithripala Sirisena, who is in New York, attending the 73rd UN General Assembly.
Secretary-General of the United Nations Antonio Guterres met President Maithripala Sirisena at the Secretary-General's office on the 27th floor of the UN headquarters in New York yesterday. Meanwhile, Secretary-General of the Commonwealth Patricia Scotland also called on the President at his hotel, where Sri Lanka's progress was praised by Scotland. In the meantime, President Sirisena was the chief guest at conference centred on narcotics, non-communicable diseases and sustainable development, organised by the World Health Organization parallel to the 73rd UN General Assembly. During the summit, the President elaborated on the need for an international convention on liquor and its production, while calling on the international community to lend its focus to the matter. The head of state also requested global representatives to attend the conference on global liquor policy set to be held in Sri Lanka next year. Addressing the gathering, Estonian Director General of Health Services had commended the President's address, saying President Sirisena's statement is an example to the rest of the world.
Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaravira once more defended the comments he made on His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith's remarks on human rights. Speaking to media following an event in Negombo today, the minister said that his comments are a reflection of his own opinion and not the stance of the government.
This is my opinion since I entered politics because of human rights. I do not accept that the concept of human rights came from the West. If anyone says that human rights is something we do not require, then I vehemently disagree with it.
Meanwhile, a protest was held against the statement made by Minister Mangala Samaravira this evening. It was organised by a group of residents from the Negombo district together with the United National Freedom Front.
We call on the President and the Prime Minister to remove Mangala Samaravira from his post. If we continue like this, the Catholic community will have no choice but to continue protesting.
Meanwhile, issuing a statement today, leader of the National Freedom Front, MP Vimal Veeravansa, said that the party deeply regrets the comments made by Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaravira, who they say does not possess the wisdom to comprehend remarks made by His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith on human rights. The communique further noted that Sri Lanka has always been a country that has been mindful of human rights for centuries, stemming as far as 6th century BC, and is part and parcel of Lord Buddha's teachings.
Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka Cheng Hee-yuan emphasizes that mega projects undertaken by the Chinese government in Sri Lanka are being carried out in a transparent manner and carries no hidden agenda. Speaking at the same forum, Minister of Ports and Shipping Mahinda Samarasinghe moved to once again clarify that Sri Lanka in fact approached China to propose a takeover of the Hambantota port and not vice versa. Addressing an event in Colombo last evening, the minister said that China helped Sri Lanka find an investor for the port when Sri Lanka was struggling to pay off outstanding loan commitments.
The 69th anniversary of founding of the People's Republic of China was celebrated in Colombo yesterday. The event was organized by the Sri Lanka-China Journalists Forum.
It was not China who asked for the Hambantota port. It was Sri Lanka. Our Prime Minister appealed to your leadership to help us to meet the debt obligation. When our Prime Minister suggested that the loan should be rescheduled or delayed because we were finding it difficult to pay back the loan, your side told our Prime Minister, well, if we do it for Sri Lanka, we'll have to do it for so many other countries. But we will try to find you an investor to come and invest in the Hambantota port so that that investment money can be used to retire the debt. So I think this should go on record, because when the concession agreement was negotiated, your side, they always said, we abide by the constitution of Sri Lanka, we respect the laws of your country, we will operate within the framework of the laws of this country. And when I suggested that we put in a clause to ensure that the security decisions are taken by our government, it was never questioned.
China's assistance towards Sri Lanka never attaches any political strings. China adheres to non-interference in internal politics. Our cooperation always adheres to mutual respect and the principle of win-win cooperation. All these pragmatic cooperative projects are negotiated under the basis of friendly negotiations. Our cooperations are transparent and negotiated and consulted with the Sri Lankan government and Sri Lankan people. There is no hidden agenda behind our cooperation.
Meanwhile, the official celebration marking the 69th anniversary of founding of the People's Republic of China was held in Colombo recently under the patronage of Speaker Karujaya Surya and former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Addressing the event, which was organized ahead of China's National Day on the 1st of October, Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka Cheng Zhu Yuan said that the reclamation of the Colombo port city will complete soon and the second phase of development is about to commence. The Chinese ambassador said profits have almost doubled after China-Sri Lanka joint venture company Hambantota International Port Group Company Limited took over the operations of the Hambantota port in December last year. Addressing the gathering, he also went on to say that tourism had expanded between the two countries in recent years, with China now becoming Sri Lanka's second largest source of tourists.
Professor at Sophia University in Japan and member of the Advisory Council for the National Headquarters for Ocean Policy of Japan, Atsuko Kanehara calls for liberal diplomacy for the success of the free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. She expressed these views at an event held in Colombo recently.
The Indo-Pacific region is facing various challenges such as piracy, terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, natural disasters, and attempts to change the status quo. Under such circumstances, FOIPS aims to promote peace, stability, and prosperity across the region to make the Indo-Pacific free and open as international public goods. Through ensuring rule-based international order, including rule of law, freedom of navigation and overflight, peaceful settlement of disputes, and promotion of free trade. As Asian countries, we have built and developed liberal democracy as our own. We do not need to speak about its Western origin. Any international cooperation could become really meaningful when it is based upon this shared common value, liberal democracy. FOIPS promotes reciprocal progresses of all the participants in terms of economy, security, maritime safety, maintenance of order, and etc. No one-sided benefit or prosperity of one state is allowed to be aimed at.
We have more news coming up right after this short break. Do stay with us.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. In your business news tonight, senior economist of the World Bank overseeing Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Thomas Walker, warns that Sri Lanka should brace itself for shocks which may occur as a result of the climate change. This, he says, could affect household income and could lead to poverty among 1 in 3 Sri Lankans. He expressed these views at an event in Colombo recently.
Natural disasters are just one of many types of shocks that governments must prepare for. All of these shocks have the potential to severely impact household well-being and, by extension, undermine development outcomes. According to a recent study on climate hotspots, Sri Lankans are exposed to moderate or severe climate hotspots, and 9 out of 10 could live in such areas by 2050. When a shock hits, household welfare falls. Now, how the household recovers over time depends on its capability to recover. and how much assistance it receives from the government and from other partners. Although Sri Lanka has made remarkable progress against poverty, 1 in 3 Sri Lankans today is only a shock away from poverty. By our calculations, the number of poor would double if welfare fell by 20%. If welfare fell by 50%, that poverty rate would increase to 1 in 3. Sri Lanka's safety net programs today are not equipped to respond to shocks. Because of this, government and humanitarian disaster relief has to rely on alternative channels that are slow and may not reach all of those in need. To truly protect all Sri Lankans against shocks, safety net programs must be able to assist anyone as and when they need it, rather than serving as an entitlement to a select few.
In international business news, Mexico said yesterday that the U.S. Trump administration and Canada were making serious efforts to resolve trade policy differences after days of bickering, raising hopes of saving the North American Free Trade Agreement as a trilateral pact. While details were scant, the apparent progress was enough to prompt Mexico and Washington to abruptly halt a plan to publish a text of their own two-way trade deal to give Canada more time to join. In Mexico, President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador told reporters that Washington had made a new counter-proposal to Ottawa, adding that he would keep pushing for all 3 countries to be a part of NAFTA. And in world news tonight, Facebook, which has more than 2 billion monthly active users, says that almost 50 million of its users were left exposed by a security flaw. The company said attackers were able to exploit a vulnerability in a feature known as View As to gain control of people's accounts. He said that the breach was discovered on Tuesday and the police have been informed of it.
Facebook Inc. has discovered a security flaw affecting about 50 million user accounts, which could have allowed attackers to take over those accounts. The social networking company made the revelation yesterday, said it has fixed the vulnerability and informed law enforcement. Attackers stole Facebook access tokens through its View As feature, which they could then use to take over people's accounts. View As feature allows users to see what their own profile looks like to someone else. Chief Executive Officer Mark Zuckerberg said in a Facebook post, quote, "We do not currently have any evidence that suggests these accounts have been compromised," unquote. Facebook shares fell more than 3% in afternoon trading, weighing on major Wall Street stock indexes. Facebook has reset the access tokens of the 50 million affected accounts and, as a precaution, reset access tokens for another 40 million that have been looked up through the View As option over the last year. The company said about 90 million people will have to log back into Facebook or any of their apps that use a Facebook login. Facebook is also temporarily disabling View As.
Still in international news, Iran has ridiculed claims by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that it is hiding a warehouse used to store prohibited nuclear technology. Netanyahu made what he called the revelation at the UN, producing a picture of the alleged secret site. However, Iran's foreign minister dismissed the claim as an arts and crafts show designed to conceal Israel's own nuclear program.
Iran has denied accusations by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of a secret atomic warehouse in Tehran. Wrapping up Day 3 of the United Nations General Assembly late Thursday night, a representative of the Iranian delegation called the claim a fallacy intended to distract from Israel's brutality against Palestinians. Netanyahu showed an aerial photograph of the Iranian capital marked with a red arrow and pointed to what he said was a previously secret warehouse holding nuclear-related material.
His fallacies in his statement confirm his pathological tendency to tell monstrous lies and distort reality. This is to distract the attentions from his regime's inherent cruelty and brutality against Palestinians. Exhibiting some photographs of Google Street View, today the Israeli showman claimed that discovered new nuclear facilities in Iran. This is yet another false story. It is not surprising as lying is in his DNA. Instead of such fabrications, he should stop threatening Iran with nuclear annihilation.
Sports news will return after this short break. Do stay with us.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to First at 9. Former Sri Lankan cricketing great Kumar Sangakkara is of the view that under fire former captain of the one-day side Angelo Matthews should restart bowling, as it would do a world of good for the players' confidence. Matthews was asked to step down from his captaincy in the one-day format recently over what Sri Lanka cricket called performance-related issues, including running between wickets on the heels of Sri Lanka's unceremonious exit from the Asia Cup. In an interview with cricketing website Cricinfo, the former Sri Lankan captain touched on the recent sequence of events and comments surrounding Matthews and the national team.
I think you have to tone down the emotion at the moment and really be rational and have a very balanced perspective as to how you go about making decisions for the side. There has to be absolutely clear communication, direct communication, person-to-person, face-to-face communication between players, coach and the management and selectors. I think trust needs to be rebuilt, roles need to be identified, a settled squad needs to be selected, and a settled squad means a lot of these misunderstandings, whether it's running between wickets or whether it's performing or whether it's delivering results, actually becomes easier. And for Hatru Singh and the Sri Lankan side, and Dinesh Chandimal, who's been announced as captain, that's going to be, a real challenge, and I think they're up to it. But I think Matthews has a very, very valuable role to play for Sri Lanka in the World Cup. Matthews needs to start bowling. He needs to get back into those nets, get back to training. If they're talking about fitness, then he needs to show them that he's fit enough. His value to the side increases with his bowling ability, and also the fact that it gives the captain an extra option. And even for Matthews as a player, it'll boost his confidence a huge amount to be able to bowl and bowl fully in one-day cricket. And I think that these differences in these the chit-chat we've had in the past 2 days needs to be sorted out. It's not too difficult to sort out, and Sri Lankan cricket to be put back on track, and the people in charge need to really buckle down to their job, and I think they will.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
A very good evening to our viewers and welcome to Forecast First. Starting off with your temperatures for tomorrow that vary between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius with the highest of 30 expected in Mullaitivu and Batticaloa. Well, when looking at the map, a low pressure zone will develop in the central hills and will gradually spread throughout the island. Well, moving on to your rain forecast for tomorrow, most parts of the upper region of the island, including Jaffna, Mannar, Vaunia and Anuradhapura, will experience heavy showers. Well, it's no difference in the lower region of the island, as most parts will experience the wet weather. That's all from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
That's all on First at 9 for tonight. But before we leave you, we'd like to take you back in time to 1896. This year, Paris will celebrate 120 years of automobile innovation at the Mondial L'Auto, which will be held from the 4th to the 14th of next month. From the first Paris Auto Show at the Tuileries Gardens that welcomed 140,000 visitors, the exhibition has grown to an international event with 1.4 million visitors today. Hope you enjoy these visuals. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.